Okay, as you can see, we're having a little bit of a problem there. The feed froze, but we're listening to testimony from a detective who's going through text messages from Ethan Crumbley's phone and from the phone of his parents. This is all about that school shooting in which Ethan Crumbley shot and killed 4 students on November 30th, just 4 days after his parents had purchased that firearm for him on Black Friday of last year. So let's bring our guests in to talk a little bit of about what we just heard. I know it was hard to hear the detective in some instances, but I think there was something key that we heard there. Matt Timpanik is a defense attorney in Florida, and Lisa Lockwood is a crime analyst and former SWAT team member. Thanks to both of you for being here today. Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. It was a little difficult to hear, but it sounded like there was some type of text message from Jennifer Crumbley to her son on the day that this occurred, or at least right around that time, saying, Ethan, don't do it. That is very, very concerning from a law enforcement perspective.
Yes, it is. And it'll be interesting to find out what she says regarding it, because we had heard in the media prior to this, she was not alluding to him shooting anybody. And we also know there was a 911 call in which the father said the gun was missing. Did mom know the gun was missing at that point? So there were so many pieces to this puzzle regarding how much knowledge did they have and what efforts did they take in order to prevent this? Because what we've learned, there was a lot of foreshadowing leading up to this event that
Hmm.
proved they were concerned about his mental well-being.
Definitely a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of red flags, the drawings that we're seeing at the school and some other things, text messages, etc. You've been listening to testimony from a detective in the Computer Crimes Unit investigating the school shooting in which Ethan Crumbley shot and killed 4 students and wounded 6 other people. We are hearing some testimony about text messages between Ethan Crumbley and another minor, and really disturbing. There was a text message about Ethan saying something to the effect, now time to shoot up the school, JK, 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 meaning just kidding. That's kind of internet shorthand for that. And Ethan says to the other individual, yes, but he says he's kidding. So that's a pretty, Lisa Lockwood, I'll ask you, one of those huge red flags we were talking about earlier. This is something in which, Ethan Crumbley, he's saying he's kidding, but then goes ahead and carries out this shooting.
Exactly. So this is 3 months prior to the shooting. He's having a conversation about shooting up a school. The thing that I found even more alarming is 9 days before the shooting, he researched 421 times about school shootings in one evening, searching to find out about multiple school shootings and probably just garnering his information to prepare for what he ultimately did, which was the mass killing at his school. So very alarming. I think it's hard to go forward when it is his time in court for an insanity defense because of this planning, because of the conversations he's had with other students, because he was able to show up to work and he was employed. And I think because of this, all of this forensic evidence, it's going to kill his case for an insanity plea.
Lisa, we can see the detective obviously standing up there. We're on a break. He's, discussing all of these items that are being presented by the prosecution. There's a lot to go through here. I mean, there are probably thousands and thousands of documents. So that's a big undertaking. They dump these phones and, the internet search history, all of that stuff, and then they kind of just hand it over on a thumb drive usually, and they say, here you go. So that's a lot of material to wade through.
It is. And one of the things that I'm looking at, and just call me OCD, this detective has all these different piles. He's stacked them on top of each other. They don't have a paper clip, they don't have a staple. So I would imagine things are going to get disrupted in that entire process. What I do believe, though, is that she does have all the paperwork. What the detective said and what I picked up on is that he went through and he pulled out sections that he thought were relevant to the case. So even though she has things that are not relevant to the case, she has the entirety of those files, the thousands and thousands of
Hmm.
text exchanges and Facebook Messenger exchanges. She has them there. But I think what he did to make the case go a little bit more fluidly, he knew what he was going to be questioned on and go ahead and extracted those separately. So she's not in chronological order anymore. So they do have to organize that system.
Definitely. And sometimes it's good to hire somebody to help with that. You're a lawyer juggling cases. Wading through all of that stuff is very difficult. And that was a coworker of Jennifer Crumbley's. She's talking about a conversation that she had with Jennifer Crumbley after the school had spoken with her about her son, having these drawings about guns and things like that. So Amanda Holland was suggesting to Jennifer Crumbley, like, hey, maybe you should pick him up, go spend some time with him. It sounds like he needs some help, spend some time with your son, see what's going on with him. And she joked about maybe taking him to a bar and said something else that was kind of sarcastic. So I think Lisa Lockwood, this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. You have the school alerting Jennifer Crumbley that there's a problem, that there are these drawings with guns and things like that. Very concerning. And she's talking to her coworker about maybe taking her son to a bar.
Oh, so inappropriate. This is a coworker that's also a friend who has heard stories about her relationship and her marriage. So you would imagine that she's probably forthcoming and truthful to this coworker / friend about what's going on in her life. And this coworker making the suggestion, thinking that this is something that you should be alarmed about with your son, and then having it be completely flippant and sarcastic, her reaction is probably right now one of those hindsight is 20/20 that she probably wished she had done something more. Not sure what she could have done to influence the mother to go get her son, but it's just so horrible and unfortunate.
Really unfortunate and just really terrible when you think about what ended up happening.